Hi, this is the Triheart Podcast, episode 16, with venue owner Sam Epstein, with featured music by Donut Shoes.
I'm Sam Epstein. I own and operate the Jungle Community Music Club, and it's a small club in Union Square, Somerville. We opened in May 2019, and spent a lot of great local music 7 nights a week we had until the pandemic and the shutdown. Then we recently reopened this June, and we started doing outdoor patio, and we've been doing from inside live streaming music. Somerville, they don't allow outdoor music, and in the state, of course, they don't allow indoor concerts. So we have been doing basically the best we can to get back to a live music club where we have performers doing a job working and live streaming from inside, so customers can hear it outside on the patio and everywhere that we're streaming.
So just to elaborate on that like a little bit, so like tell us a little bit about running the Jungle, which is this your sophomore year with the Jungle, second year?
Yeah, I guess so. It was like 1 year in May. So yeah.
Yeah, that's wild to have to like hit this thing so early in the Jungle's life. But tell us a little bit about the Jungle day to day pre-COVID, and then kind of elaborate more on what you were just saying, like the day to day during COVID.
Pre-COVID, I mean, we opened up in May 2019, and we're really behind a restaurant, behind the independent restaurant in Union Square. So it's a space that no one really knew about at first. No one went back there. It was pretty slow, mostly empty most days, honestly, when we first started. And then it started getting busier and busier, and shows were selling out. And I know, David, you did a 8-bit show, and that was one of the busiest ones. So so we opened in May 2019. By that show in February 2020, by that time it was like every Friday, Saturday, totally sold out, 85 capacity. It's like almost every show was just like awesome turnout, awesome music, tons of people enjoying it. And then that's like totally packed full on Friday, Saturdays. And then during the week, it was like a true community music club. Every Wednesday we had open mic, so it would be generally full. It's like all 35 seats at least, not like standing room full, but 35 seats full, and it was all musicians, and that was really cool. It was like all musicians just kind of supporting each other, performing, and just like totally focused on the music. So that was just like a really cool night. We did every Wednesday a free open mic, and besides that, it was usually about 3 acts, at least 3 acts booked every night of the week, and just things were getting better and better. The community really was responding to it and loved it, and the more people learned about it, the more busy we would be. It was great. But then with the shutdown, I was middle of March. With that shutdown, we had a lot of cases in Massachusetts in May. So I started doing takeout alone, and just to see how it would work in a new pandemic era. So kind of reopened very, very slowly, just doing takeout, and not really much business, not really much takeout, just kind of getting the wheels spinning again, starting to open things up. But then we really did open for real when our city allowed outdoor dining with a patio. So that was in the middle of June, started doing that. And basically what we did was try to just reconnect with the community of musicians and neighbors who liked coming out before. We wanted to do what we could to have a place where people could gather, obviously safely, instead of 85 capacity inside. We had 24 people spread out over a large parking lot. So very distant, very safe. And I do appreciate the guidelines that they had, where we had to have the tables 6 feet apart. Everyone had to remain seated. So it felt very safe. And what we wanted to do was to be able to have outdoor music there, like so many places next door in Cambridge, where you can have a musician performing. Maybe it's 6 feet, maybe it's 15 feet away from the patio, away from customers. And that would have been really great. That would have like really been connecting people together. Musicians could perform in front of customers. Fans could see live music for a brief time in the summer when it could be done outside, could be safe before what would necessarily be a winter lockdown, because we're not advocating, we don't want indoor concerts. Obviously the disease does spread indoors, and so we really just wanted to take advantage of the opportunity in the summer when there were very low cases and it's safe enough to do something outside. So that's what we started. As soon as we opened in June, we started very respectfully asking the city, saying, when the state, when other cities do allow outside music, can we add this? Something that we wanted to add along with the rest of the state. With Cambridge, the state allowed it in the very beginning of July. And Cambridge has long been doing outside music. But unfortunately, the city of Somerville, it was really unfortunate. They're just trying to look tough on coronavirus, and they passed this rule in Somerville that said absolutely no outside music. They in fact even banned radios, any kind of speaker. But important for us, they banned performers. No musician, no entertainer, no one can work outside at any patio, even if, let's say, in previous years you've long had a patio that was licensed with an entertainment license to have it. They just blanket rule, they're not going to let anyone move performances outside. Like, we are a live music venue. We're also a restaurant. They let restaurants like ours, all restaurants, that a great process for you just submit an application, then you can move your restaurant safely outside. The city banned the ability for anyone to move entertainment outside. And even for those who had previously been approved, they've long had a license for a patio with entertainment. This city just had a blanket ban on that. Absolutely no one's allowed to perform live music outside. And that was just a really, from their view, must have seemed simple way to look strong, to look tough on coronavirus. But
Right.
when they ended up opening indoor gyms, indoor hockey, indoor restaurants with no masks, all those things, so much more dangerous than outside music. And so that was what was really, really frustrating for us. They clearly were scapegoating musicians. And what's devastating for us and the people who work at the Jungle, who perform music at the Jungle, are disproportionately Black musicians. And so that really is a case right there of systemic racism, where city officials, the mayor, in order to look tough on Corona, so he can later campaign, run for governor, say, look, when the pandemic was a big problem, I was tougher than all the other cities. I shut down music. You know who it ended up hurting? Not him.
Right. Yeah, that is exactly the kind of the meat of this interview. I definitely want to come back to that. I wanted to pull in a little bit and just get like a better idea of the Jungle. So one of the things that really struck me about learning about you when we did first start doing the Boston 8-Bit shows there was the words like your title, even the venue's title, which is the Jungle Music Community Club. And I don't hear when I hear like the words community club, I think of like, like the Greek community club, or like a space where you can like, it's like a cafeteria space. You can rent it out for, a teenager's birthday party or something fun, if like, 40th marriage anniversary or something like that. So why did you include the words community club in your venue title?
So one of the reasons was to just make it really clear that this is a small music venue. It's not like a big concert hall, large venue. It's not a club in the traditional sense. Like you have some clubs downtown where it's much larger and it's somewhat impersonal, where you probably don't have an expectation that you would meet the artists or the musicians. And so what we wanted to communicate really clearly was that this is a small community music club where it's going to support almost exclusively local musicians, and there's going to be a real connection between the musicians and their fans and the community and the friends who are there to see them. And it's just a really intimate space. So there are intimate music venues. That's a category, that's a term that I've heard, and it certainly applies. Small music venue, that applies. But I think community music club is to also emphasize that there's participation. There's both ways. You don't just buy a ticket. You have a place where you're allowed to sit or stand, and then you have to leave. The musicians are going to be right there with you. They're going to get up on the stage, and they're going to get back down, and everyone's really together in a community music club. Also, if you basically go there on any Wednesday, you'll see that's our open mic night, and that's where it's just like most obvious, where just every single person there is either a musician or a very close friend of a musician. Just everyone kind of takes a turn going up on the stage and supporting each other. So that's the other thing. It's not like you buy your ticket and you're there just to have a good time with your friends, which that's all right. But what I see overwhelmingly is people are there, to have a good time themselves, maybe get some food or drinks, have a good time with their friends, but they're there to support local musicians. The music is not background, it's not ambiance. They're focused on overwhelmingly local musicians performing original music, and that's kind of what people are paying attention to, focusing on. It's not something that's in the background. It is entertainment, but it's something that the community is basically committed to and supporting and building together. Because it's important that there's musicians on stage, but also it's important the community that comes back time and time again, the community that lives nearby or just likes to come back a lot. They're just as important to having a space that can support local musicians.
I really fell in love with the community club when, there's a local staple here for me in my community whose name is Carbia. And he's just this dude that, you remember Carbia?
Carbia, yeah.
Yeah. He just does not, give a fuck. That dude is amazing. Like his persona, I feel like a lot of people would not understand, and his artistry like right away. And so they might, be hesitant to give him a stage. And to see the Jungle Community Club be able to give Carbia, who's an amazing artist, a stage says everything to me about, like community and the club's identity. Tell us a little bit about what you think the Boston music or art scene is. In my view, I feel like I'm setting this up for like a loaded question, but like in my view, I feel like the Jungle is really the antithesis to like the Boston arts music scene, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But do you feel like that's true, or do you feel like you kind of fit in with the Boston music status quo scene?
I guess I probably don't know very much about probably most of the Boston music scene. I mean, in terms of small music clubs, I think I have a good sense. I know and have for a long time enjoyed many of the small music clubs. So for instance, like very close to us, once Somerville, and they have a medium-sized, almost large ballroom, but the once lounge is very similar in size, and the way that shows happen there, very intimate, small venue. Also Dorchester Arts Project. So there's venues that are they don't have the name Community Music Club. I'd say they're very similar to how we operate. And then there's the traditional kind of like rock clubs, which are also pretty similar. Great Scott in Alston, just lot any small music venue supporting local musicians. I've really enjoyed that. That's whether if someone works at the Jungle, basically guaranteed they're either a fan that has supported local music at a lot of places like that, or they are a musician, and that's basically. So we're these venues and spaces and people who work there, perform there. I think it is everyone's part of the local music community. Whether there's a space like the Jungle that says, okay, that's what's in the name because we're focused on that, or just because that's in fact what's happening.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Where I was kind of going was there's two things. So I'll start with this Boston Globe article that just kind of came out, and it got a lot of blowback. The article was titled Aerosmith, the Cars, the Pixies, Boston used to be a rock and roll capital. Where's all the music gone? It kind of got like a lot of blowback because even though, truth be told, I did not read this article because it cost money to read it and I didn't really want to spend any money to read it. But you can kind of get the gist of where it's going with the title, unless it was like a reverse psychology thing where it ends up saying, oh, the music scene is underneath you. But so I guess I would ask you, so where is all the Boston music gone?
Yeah, I mean, it's here. It hasn't gone anywhere. There, it's at the Jungle. It's at all of these local music clubs, larger venues where local musicians are performing as well. There's lots of music in Boston.
And one of the things we were I was kind of discovering about Boston through this article and some of the blowback that it was getting was that, Boston is a sports city. So, everything's about the Red Sox and the Patriots and blah, 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 blah. And I feel like that just kind of overarches the whole music scene here. So I guess, how do you navigate the Jungle Community Club in kind of like a sports city?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you certainly could say that there's sports, there's video games, there's Netflix, there's like high-end gastropubs. There's alternatives to supporting local music for sure. So those are alternatives, those are competitors. So yeah, I mean, I would say it's a distraction. Music's better. Go out and support local music. It's more fun. Go to a show, participate in a show. Definitely better. Support local musicians. That's my opinion. And I would say that a lot of these places, go check it out on Friday night, Saturday night, really any night of the week. The Jungle, once we get that vaccine, you'll see that there's music scene is strong and people really support it.
Okay, so feel free to skip this next question. It's about the it's about the Boston Music Awards, and I feel like I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot here. So, this year they came up. I was all ready to vote for the Jungle Community Club, for the intimate live music venue, and I did not see your name up there. So this might be small beans for you, but I was mad because I don't know, like I saw Great Scott up there, and no shade to Great Scott, but they've been closed for this entire COVID time. And I've seen the Jungle being an outlet for, the music scene in like a shutdown COVID world. So I was a little irritated to not see your name up there when you are, one of the very few in the city and the surrounding city promoting live music, even if it's through like live stream or the arts. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts about the Boston Music Awards this year.
Yeah, it was an honor that we were nominated last year in our very first year, and that's really when I guess we didn't operate all year. We opened in May, and for a lot of that, we opened in this back alley where no one knew we existed for a while. It took a while to build, and so basically that was a big honor, maybe shooting above our weight to be part of those who were nominated last year when we had just started. This year, yeah, I felt like at the very beginning of the year, it was like exceeded every expectation for the club. It was just going so great music, lots of fans and friends and just everyone packing in the place and making it a true community music club every night of the week. But I think I can totally understand not being nominated this year, because the thing is, we were shut down for a lot of the year. So yeah, I appreciate you recognizing that we did open up soon as reasonably could for us in middle of June. And so yeah, it was a ton of work to open up because we don't really have a patio space. The landlord was really generous in letting us for free, no extra rent, to use the parking lot, which because the coronavirus isn't used all that much, especially after 5 p.m. because it's an office building besides the Jungle. So it's really a lot of work for us to every day. We start at 4 p.m. Bartender and I will carry every table, every chair, posts and lights and chains. We build the whole patio, carry everything out, build it. At the end of the night, we bring it all back in. So it is way more work than just unlocking the doors and passing a beer across the bar when someone comes up to us. We're also so between the bartender and I, it's just 2-man crew because there's very few seats that we can have, and honestly not that many customers who come out right now just because times are tough, I think, economically, and people have concerns with the pandemic. So a lot of work for certainly not enough money to make it financially worthwhile to be doing this operation right now. But we opened up at this level doing the patio since June. We did that to connect with the community because there were so many people that came out and really enjoyed being there, and I heard their stories every time I got up on stage, open mic night on Wednesdays. And so basically wanted to connect and have a place for people to gather and hang out with their friends and community, and also for musicians, of course. That's why, honestly, at some significant health risk to me and the staff and musicians, but it's important enough for us to do music in the best, safest way that this city will let us. We have people come inside, perform on the stage. I'll usually be a bartender outside taking orders at the patio. I'll be inside at the kitchen, the other end of the inside space, making all the food gets ordered. And so, yeah, it's definitely a ton of work that we do basically to give back to the music community. So it's yeah, it could have been safer, could have saved a little more money just by staying closed, but we didn't want to be closed for the whole year after so much the musicians and the local community of fans have given us. So I wanted to open up and do as much as we could in terms of supporting musicians and local music, having a community music club where people could gather and enjoy that. So we did open up in June. But in terms of not being nominated, I think that's pretty reasonable, because the truth is we weren't open, we weren't doing things throughout the whole pandemic. And I know, for instance, many of those great clubs who were nominated, Dorchester Art Project, I think they've been doing live streams but they never stopped. They've been doing it all throughout the pandemic. So really, I have to congratulate an effort like that. Same thing in the larger, like the full music venue category. Once Somerville, they've used the ballroom to do basically turn that into like a professional video studio where you can book that and have like top, like what we'll do with the live stream is any technology you have, you can film it with that, or we'll just take a phone. And I mean, phones are really good these days. They'll capture it and send it to Facebook Live. But yeah, at once, what they've been doing is virtual venue that they started that long before we reopened in June. They're doing that from kind of the very middle of the pandemic, like as soon as you could reopen, when you could reopen a restaurant. I think they've been doing that since you could gather again inside of like a office building type place where you can do live streaming. So basically, I think there's a lot of venues who did even more than us, even though it is quite a lot that we do. And I don't know anyone else who is building a patio, taking it in every night. So, but every space is different. Of course, most places don't have a landlord who owns a parking lot or who could give them the parking lot to use. So basically, I think every club is doing the best they can in a really tough year, tough situation. And so definitely a lot of respect to the clubs who have been doing the best to not shut down at all and doing live streaming or whatever they can. And then there's some clubs that like, yeah, I mean, I really like that respect. The Great Scott, because yeah, they closed basically permanently, it sounds like.
Oh, they've been going through it. Yeah, for sure.
So I think there's like categories of clubs that never closed, that have been operating through the pandemic. We operated through most all the pandemic, not all of it. And then there's clubs that it's kind of like a lifetime achievement award type thing, because it's like if they lose the space, sadly, a lot of them we won't see open again. The Jungle will be back next year.
You are much more graceful than I am. I'm very petty, so I'm still mad about you not being nominated, but that's okay. We'll move on. Now I want to get to this Facebook post, which is there's so much to unpack on this post. So when I saw this post, I wanted to like do that GIF of Shia LaBeouf clapping. I don't know. All right, so let's break this down. So the first section of the post was you tagged the city of Somerville and you said, why did you open indoor gyms and exercise classes before allowing a single musician to work outside at a patio? City of Cambridge, next door, allows both. Will gyms be allowed to play music or shout instructions, or must classes exercise in silence and follow visual cues? So let's start with that. So can you elaborate a little more on what you were saying there?
Yeah, it's really trying to get answers publicly from the city, because I was trying to be respectful at first when they passed that ban on live music. Thought, all right, the city has to manage a lot of different activities. Some may be causing more transmission of virus than others. So it's a difficult job. And at first, I wasn't trying to call anyone at the city out publicly. They have a hard job to do. At first, it was just very respectful emails. I would get on calls privately with city managers, and starting in late June, early July. And I was just asking, I was saying, why is there a ban on outside music in Somerville? Other cities, Cambridge next door, is allowing really safely musicians to perform outside, because the idea is if you have everyone throughout the state, if you have an outside restaurant patio, customers have to be 6 feet apart at tables. They have to remain seated. There is no gathering. It's not allowed. And the only answer I ever got from the city was that if they allow a musician to perform, then they're worried that there's going to be uncontrollable crowds. And so what's most frustrating to me is that is an old racist trope that going back to the 50s, when Chuck Berry, black man, invented rock and roll. He invented rock and roll, started playing 1 year. The very next year, a lot of cities banned rock and roll. And that was because there was police that busted a show. They said, you know what, this all black band, it's going to make the crowd uncontrollable. It's going to, these rhythms that they're playing, it's just going to make the crowd totally uncontrollable. And that's such a racist trope that's been used to ban music, to stop disproportionately black musicians from working and performing. And so that was the same language. Uncontrollable crowds has been used in the 50s to ban rock and roll. It's been used this year, 2020, by the city of Somerville. That's the one explanation that they've given me over and over again from the very beginning of their ban at the beginning of coronavirus. And they've never lifted that ban. So the state allowed outdoor music in July at the patio. So customers are required to stay seated, and you can't get up and dance, can't gather, can't even like stand up and, the way you could kind of talk with a friend who's at another table. You can chat in the walkways in between, then you both go to your tables. That's banned, and that's kind of reasonable. It's people not 6 feet apart. So given that the state has these rules preventing anyone from gathering, anyone from dancing, and those are the specific ones for a restaurant, but every small business in the state, if you reopened during this pandemic, the state puts the obligation on the manager of that small business, whether it's a barber shop or a retail shop, that you can't have lines, you can't have people gathering, and the manager of the small business has to disperse lines, has to disperse crowds and tell people, hey, I'm sorry, you can't be gathering like that. So why is it that when the state has that rule for every small business, and certainly doesn't discriminate against specifically musicians, and right next door in Cambridge, you've got musicians who can work 6 feet, 10 feet away from a patio outside. All you're doing, you're taking an existing space where a limited number of people are allowed to not gather, but they're allowed to sit separately at tables. They have to stay seated. And then all you do is add one musician, or basically like another table. Maybe you've got a couple musicians in a band. It's like one more table, but instead of eating 6 feet away, maybe they're performing 6 feet, 10 feet away outside the patio. So it's really the same thing. And why is it that only in Somerville has said, you know what, if we do that, then all of a sudden musicians, they're going to cause these criminal gatherings to form, and the manager of the restaurant won't be able to disperse it? Why would great haircuts not cause uncontrollable crowds of young teenage girls running up to see the Beatles? Like, why would great food at restaurants not cause that, or great apparel, you got a retail shop. So what is it about music that is going to cause these uncontrollable crowds? And going all the way back to the 50s, it's just a racist trope that has been used to discriminate against Black musicians, saying that when there's music, especially by disproportionately Black musicians, that's what's going to make people uncontrollable. That's what's going to make crowds, gatherings criminal, so bad that the manager of the business can't be trusted to disperse the crowds. Like, crowds are not allowed, so ban crowds. The state has banned crowds. Every city has upheld and enforced the ban on crowds, but the city of Somerville has banned music, saying that that's going to incite people to gather uncontrollably. And that's pretty outrageous. Early on, all I was telling the city, I said, why don't you just ban actual behavior that can spread the virus? Don't ban something that might inspire and incite someone to break a rule. Just enforce the rules that are actually there for safety. And I was asking them very originally, I said, well, if a customer can bring Fox News on their phone into a patio, that's going to incite them to stand up, take off a mask, break the rules. Why are you banning music that might inspire rule breaking when there's a million things that might inspire rule breaking? Just enforce the rules. If there's actual rule breaking, you have to do something, find someone who broke a rule. If given business like a restaurant over and over again, or maybe even one time, if it's bad enough, if it's dangerous because someone might get a virus, shut down the restaurant if there's rule breaking right there. But don't ban an entire class of people, like all musicians, from working because there might be some rule breaking. And that's really what I've been telling them from the very beginning, from July, when the state allowed outside music at restaurant patios. I've been saying, you know what, there's a short summer season when musicians can work outside safely. Let's just do this now, because once it's too cold, no musician's going to have any chance to work or make any money. No customer is going to be able to see live music, which is an important thing for mental health. People don't get to participate and connect with people, like Zoom, all this stuff on the internet. That really isn't going to like satisfy a basic human need to connect with people and have art and see people performing and talk with them in person.
Right. This is kind of embarrassing. Is it pronounced the mayor's name? Is it Kuchatoni? Kucha? I've never known. I've only seen
Kuchatoni.
Kuchatoni. So, okay, so let's say what I'm kind of hearing from you is Kuchatoni and his administration is kind of playing like the father figure in Footloose. You know, it's like no dancing, no fun, because of these uncontrollable crowds. So why do you think that it looks tough to be able to, tough but fair, if I'm the mayor, so like tough but fair to crack down on musicians?
I mean, if you're the mayor, maybe you want to run for governor and you see Governor Cuomo and you have those ambitions. You say, oh, wow, that guy looks so tough on coronavirus. He shuts down all these places and he's being so tough, but people think that he's keeping them safe. And maybe he is. I don't know about details of what's happening in New York there. But I think certainly that this mayor sees an opportunity, that he sees, all right, well, you've got terrible management doing nothing to save people from the pandemic, like from the president, Trump. And then you see mayor or governors that look tough doing something. And he says, all right, so I need to look tough on Corona. I need to do something. And politics, it's just a competitive sport for him. So what he wants to do is just one step above, whether it's rational, whether it's important step above or not. He wants to be one step above any other city. So that when he runs for governor, he can say, you know what, when there was the pandemic, when there was coronavirus, we were the most tough on Corona. We banned more things when I was in charge of Somerville than any other city. Cambridge next door, Boston, we banned more things than anyone. All right, so if you want to be that tough on Corona, do it in a way that's going to save people's lives. If you're going to open indoor gyms, open indoor hockey, open more dangerous indoor businesses that are going to take lives, put lives at risk, why are you opening those? Are you opening those because those are businesses that are powerful, more powerful than musicians? Are you opening those indoor dangerous businesses because it's worth the risk, because you, your family, people who are powerful, who are close to you, want those things? They want indoor exercise classes. This isn't like gyms 6 feet apart. This is exercise classes that are open. Hockey, contact sport inside. But banning a musician from performing outside, that is just clearly, categorically safer. But these details, like how I said, I don't know what's happening in New York. for details. I don't know if that governor is being too tough on Corona. I just know that people say, oh, that guy is tough on Corona, good leader. And I'm sure that looks like something that if you have aspirations to become governor here, you probably want to do something like that. And so, yeah, it's really just scapegoating, clearly scapegoating musicians. Best case scenario, scapegoating musicians, opening more dangerous indoor businesses because you don't want the blowback, you don't want to upset people who are close to you, or you don't want to ban yourself and those close to you from doing things they want. And if music's not important to you, then it's easy to look tough and be able to point back and say, look, these other places, other cities, other mayors, other candidates for governor, they allowed outside music. They allowed these terrible, dangerous concerts. I didn't, I banned them. So the state has banned large concerts. And then I've never asked for large concerts. I've asked for letting a musician work where there's already a small and due to COVID, limited number of people who are allowed to sit 6 feet apart at a patio. And it's just unfortunate. So when this city in Somerville, they were opening restaurants, they let restaurants who are licensed to operate inside, they let them get new licenses very quickly, very efficient process, because the city saw that, all right, we would like to start reopening from coronavirus, but the state has banned, at that point in early June, banned inside dining. Makes sense. They allow outside dining. In this city, very few places previously had an outside patio license. So the state said, all right, we want to let restaurants open. We can't let it happen inside. Neither the state nor the city wanted to open inside. Most restaurants, most customers don't want to be inside. It wasn't safe. People overwhelmingly agreed it wasn't safe at that time, early June. So the city got together a really great management leadership. They made this really efficient process to review safety plans and approve plans for, as far as I know, any restaurant that had an inside license was able to, in a very efficient process and fast process, submit their safety plan, get approved to move outside. The city never did that to let someone with an entertainment license venue move outside. There was a ban at the state level of anything over 100 people. So you could have a restaurant with, my restaurant was 24 seats in COVID times to keep distancing. And so there's just a categorical ban from the state level that if it's like over 100, something like that, there's no way you can have an outdoor venue with over 100. But in this city, you've got restaurants that are bigger than mine, restaurants that are maybe 40 seats. And so that would count as a small outside music venue. The state allows that. The state allows music to be performed outside in front of people as long as it's a limited number. And there's reasonable safety steps, like you have groups separated, just like you're already doing at restaurant patios. So with those guidelines, the very beginning of July, that's what the state allowed. And City of Cambridge, they never implemented this specific ban on outdoor music. So as soon as the City of Cambridge adopted the state's phase 3, step 1 reopening plan, which included outdoor music venues, then restaurants were allowed to say, all right, I've been allowed to reopen outside on a patio. Now I'd like to add music. That's just the next step in opening. Restaurants, outside restaurants were phase 2. Outside music is phase 3, step 1. And so that's really reasonable. And I commend the City of Cambridge for not putting a specific ban on music. Maybe they have bans on certain things that are actually dangerous, but they never said, well, musicians, dangerous people, attract dangerous crowds of criminals, that's banned. That's what Somerville did. Lowell, a lot of people who've performed at the Jungle have performed outside our restaurants in Cambridge. Lowell, a lot of other cities around Massachusetts, like maybe, I don't know, it's like a mile or something, very close. Kendall Square, Cambridge, more close, more dense neighborhood than mine in Somerville. And Za Pizza in Kendall Square, they're having a outside patio pizza restaurant, and they'll have jazz performers. It's kind of like a regular thing they started this summer, and really safe and really successful. So that's just the kind of thing that originally I've been asking the city, politely asking city managers, saying, hey, well, like Cambridge allows it, the state's allowing it, why are you banning outdoor music? And at first they said, well, we think it'll be uncontrollable crowds. And at first, like in early June and very early July, I said, all right, I would kind of ask them to explain more. I'd say, well, why are you banning something that might cause rule breaking? Why not just ban the rule breaking? But then when the city started moving towards opening clearly more dangerous things. They right away open indoor restaurants, which to me is more dangerous than outside anything, including outside music. But all right, that's one thing. Then the city opens indoor gyms, indoor exercise classes, indoor hockey. That's part of phase 3, step 1. So this city adopted the state's phase 3, step 1 late. The city said, all right, we're a dense city. We need to be more tough on Corona. That's somewhere where I can agree with the Mayor Currichione, say, all right, you wanted to be safe. You wanted to delay phase 3, step 1. Okay, fine. But then when this city implemented, they said, all right, now it's safe enough to implement the state's phase 3, step 1, but not all of it, because we still want to be a little bit more tough on Corona than the rest of the state. So the state opened phase 3, step 1 early, we do it late, and we're still going to ban some things. And what did the city choose to ban? They open part of the phase 3, step 1, they open indoor gyms, indoor hockey, kept their ban on all outdoor music. And that is not being tough on Corona. That's not saving lives. It's trying to look tough on Corona. It's trying to find an easy way to look tough on Corona without upsetting people who are close to you, upsetting people who you find powerful adversaries. And it's just scapegoating musicians. And it happens to be disproportionately hurting Black musicians who work at the Jungle, who are disproportionately Black and hurt by this systemic racism. And yeah, you don't have to see police shooting people to say, you know what, I'm going to put my foot down. I have to speak out against this. This is wrong. This has to be stopped. There's racism every city, every place, and it's really not okay to say, well, you know what, I kind of just want to go to my indoor gym class, and that's fine with me. So yeah, maybe people performing outside, maybe someone will get COVID. So let's just be thankful for some rules, and it really doesn't matter which rules. Let's just let some people be blocked from working, some people be blocked from doing what they want to do. Others, like, you really have to just look at it about what is safe, inside or outside, large groups or small groups. And if you're allowing things to happen outside in small groups, that's always safer than contact hockey inside.
A lot of what you're saying from someone who, from my perspective, which is like a artist booker, book a lot of shows, and I like try and get an idea of like the scene here in Boston to be able to exploit, shows and stuff like that. It really fits into the narrative what we were talking before, where sports or gyms or indoor hockey or athletics are being catered to, and the musicians are getting the shaft. And so that's the first half, and then the you used the word in your post, decriminalization. So the criminalization of the Boston rap scene, which is non-existent. It does not, I've seen it getting better recently actually, but it is not a scene that's exhibited here in Boston until just kind of semi-recently. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just kind of
well,
like,
I would correct that. I would say there's been a lot of great Boston rappers going back as far as I could see. A lot of great Boston rap, hip hop, and music. There is overwhelmingly this kind of ban on letting it be performed in clubs, and that's more systemic racism. That I can tell you that when you apply for insurance as a restaurant or music venue, anyone that wants to add music at a dance floor, you have to check a box. You have to say, is there live music? Check a box. Is there dance floor? Check a box. All right. So when someone's going to insure a restaurant, it makes sense to check those boxes: live music, dance floor, because presumably outside of COVID times, you are going to have people gathering, dancing, bumping into each other, and falling. So that is the kind of thing, that's like the kind of thing the insurance company has to pay for. When someone bumps into another person on a dance floor, they fall. All right, insurance company, I can kind of understand those boxes to check. They charge more. So when place decides, do they want to add music? Do they want to add a dance floor? They know they have to check that box and pay more to the insurance company. The insurance company goes on, they say, do you have a dance floor? Check. Do you have live music? Check. Do you have hip hop? If you check that box, you're going to pay more.
wow.
That is like terrible discrimination, systemic racism, and that's a big reason why a lot of music festivals and music venues will say, I'm sorry, I cannot and will not book any hip hop, and why you don't see it. So Boston hip hop exists, and there's great musicians, rappers, fans all throughout Boston, but it doesn't get to be performed because of that's just the insurance discrimination is one of many things. That's the same certainly throughout the state. Maybe that's a national standard. A lot of things that insurance companies do because like they're national. That might be a national thing. I don't know. But yeah, but basically anywhere you look, musicians often are discriminated against, and it's very easy to find cases where Black musicians are discriminated against were the worst.
Right. And you actually rephrased it perfectly. How I should have phrased it is it just feels like it doesn't even matter how big you get as a hip hop artist. It all just feels like one blanket underground Boston scene where nobody gets to like rise up, and maybe one or two acts, but that's what it feels like. Yeah, you phrased it really well in my view. Okay, so let's keep going down this text here. So, and I think we covered some of it. So you said excluding new gathering spaces. When will outdoor music be decriminalized at existing restaurant patios? So we had talked about that. And then holding constant occupancy and distancing rules. Is outdoor music not safer than indoor music? Is it not easier to maintain crowd controls of diners who are required to remain seated versus people who are exercising, running, and jumping? And then this is a really good section here. Before the jungle began focusing almost exclusively on original music performed by local musicians who are disproportionately Black, we used to host some of the indoor exercise classes that Somerville just reopened, and they looked like this: concerts, cycling, cocktails, Caucasians. Stop scapegoating the musician community. So we had talked a little bit about this, but can we, I happen to know you have that indoor cycling to live music program. So tell us a little bit more about this paragraph here and the program you were running there.
When we first opened, we would early on, I think it was Mondays and Thursdays, like 5 to 8, we'd have cycling classes. It'd be like a gym, because I saw a lot of live music venues. Nobody would book any music before 8. Most of them would just be closed, and they open up at 8 for a show. We would book regular local music, original music, starting at 8. Nighttime live music shows. But what we did was operate more like a gym, which are busy and people enjoy a lot more right after work hours between 5 and 8. So we did live music. So it was a way to actually book more shows, have more bands performing. We'd have some cover bands playing live music with cycling, like a gym exercise, spin class, cycling class. So when we did those, it just I can't speak for all indoor cycling classes, spin classes, but the people who came to these classes, wasn't a lot of people, wasn't very popular. That's why we stopped it. But it was overwhelmingly white. And then we stopped doing that just because it wasn't that popular. It was kind of a strange new idea, try to do something that could be fun, but not that many people did it. So we stopped doing that, and we focus just exclusively now on live music. Overwhelmingly, we focus on local music, original music, and that's kind of what started the shift for seeing disproportionately Black musicians performing their original music. And that's just that's one sector that's been discriminated against throughout history. When you have bans on rock and roll, that was originally invented by Black people. Look through the history of American music, original music genres. There's so many examples with blues, jazz, rock, hip hop. It's invented by Black musicians, and then it's banned by white men in power, white mayors. And then eventually enough white people start benefiting from it, start performing it, and then it goes mainstream. Like, you don't have that checkbox for rock and roll. I'm sure that if you open a music club in the 50s and 60s, at first you just couldn't open a club. It was categorically banned. So they said, don't do it. That was the 50s. Maybe in the 60s, they started opening up so you could have a rock club. I'm sure you had to check the box at that point and say, yep, there's rock and roll music here. So you'd pay more. Now, you don't check the box for rock and roll. That's included in mainstream, safe music. You do check the box, you pay more on insurance if you want to have hip hop. And so maybe a few more years, a few more decades, there's going to be new music genres, and hip hop won't be discriminated against. But right now, if you want to perform any music in Somerville, it's banned, categorically completely banned, for good reason, in front of people inside, because it's a disease that spreads a lot inside, and for just scapegoating, bad reasons. It's banned outside so that the mayor can look tough on Corona. And I do put this blame on the mayor, because at first I spent months talking to his city managers, asking them to explain why they're opening indoor restaurants, not outdoor music, why it's allowed next door in Cambridge. And I was really frustrated. I was asking them to explain why they're opening indoor gyms, indoor hockey. It's part of phase 3, step 1, and banning live music from phase 3, step 1. That's the piece where I continued my months-long string of calls with those city managers, and all they could tell me is, well, I'm not a decision maker. I've been told that the city wants to be more tough, look more safe on coronavirus than the rest of the state. And I've been told by the decision makers that this decision was made so that we can avoid attracting uncontrollable crowds. That's what they were telling me over and over again. So when they told me that after opening indoor gyms, that's when I say, you know what, I can never get on a phone. Sometimes the mayor would join one of those calls, but my question would be screened. Those questions that you were asking, that you were reading from my post there, questions about why are you opening more dangerous inside activities and keeping the ban on outdoor music? What is safer about inside hockey, inside restaurants, no masks? What is safer about that than outside music? Those questions would be screened, but maybe it was fair. Everyone's questions was screened. Anytime there was the mayor or a decision maker on a call throughout most of the pandemic, most of the summer, the questions were screened because so many businesses had questions. And I understand that, like, I don't have the mayor's number, email directly. Everyone wants to ask those questions when he joined, or any decision maker joins one of those calls. So questions were screened. My tough questions were never addressed. He did address a question with businesses when he joined one of the calls about the city's phase 3, step 1, gave the presentation to look like a very smart epidemiologist, almost an hour of going over the epidemiological numbers and then saying, all right, therefore, we've deemed it safe enough to join the rest of the state now. Safer and later, this city is opening phase 3, step 1. Okay, very impressive. And then he's like, any questions? Someone asks, so why are you not allowing indoor exercise classes? And he said, that's a fair question. You say, why are you not allowing these when it's happening next door in Cambridge? So when the city actually did open phase 3, step 1, it included and allowed indoor exercise classes based on the same argument that I'm having, which is Cambridge, the rest of the state next door, they're doing outside music. One piece of my argument is that it's outside. It happens to be actually safer. It was frustrating when the mayor took that question and to look reasonable, like he's taking tough questions, said, all right, our original plan was not to allow indoor exercise classes in phase 3, step 1, but maybe it's fair because they are doing that next door in Cambridge, and someone can go to a class in Cambridge, bring the diseases right back here across the street. So then the city did open phase 3, step 1 indoor exercise classes. My question wasn't taken, it was screened out on that call with the mayor.
Wow.
Many calls like that. But eventually, so for reasons like that, I started posting publicly because people didn't know about this racist ban, racist effects. Certainly it was a ban in order to scapegoat musicians, in order to look tough and decisive on coronavirus. So people just didn't know about who's being hurt and that this ban even exists. So that's why I started publicly posting, because I was asking for months city managers, and all they could say is, I'm not a decision maker on this. I can just tell you the rules that we're supposed to enforce and the reason that a different decision maker made it, which is uncontrollable crowds. I know you don't like that answer, but that's the only answer I can give. After I've been getting that for a while, that's when the city was saying that they're going to open phase 3, step 1 inside gyms, but not outside music, that's when I started posting publicly. And finally, very recently, maybe like 2 weeks ago, Somerville Arts Council had a town hall where the mayor joined. And that town hall and that call, finally, instead of a city manager, instead of someone who's paid by the mayor to screen questions, questions were screened by someone from the local arts community. And they thought my question was reasonable, so they sent it through. The mayor took my question that time, which was, why are you opening? Why did you already open indoor hockey and open indoor gyms, but keep the ban on outdoor music when Cambridge next door is doing it? Safe outdoor music at patios. He took that question, and in front of about 100 people at the Arts Town Hall, there was no opposition, lots of support, and being a smart politician and a reasonable person, he hears that argument. He says, okay, I understand. And I gave him the out then. I said, you know what? I've never been able to talk with, to be unmuted on a call with a decision maker. So thanks for supporting the arts community, having this call when I can be unmuted and ask this question. And it's kind of reasonable to me that if you're a mayor, you're a decision maker in a big city, a lot of business owners have questions, and not all of them are going to get to ask their question. So it was basically an honor, I think, from the city and from this mayor to have an arts town hall specifically for the arts, and where that's the thing. If maybe there's not such special treatment for businesses, there's at least respectful treatment. The time is taken and given from the mayor to the arts community. So I said, you know what, thanks for having this town hall. Thanks for taking my question here. It's great that this is the first time that any decision maker has been able to hear directly from me this argument and this question. And so his response was okay, thanks for bringing it to our attention. There were a couple city councilors on the call. I hadn't also been live on a call with a city councilor. Sometimes you send emails, but you don't know who's able to read the email. And honestly, city council, I don't hold them responsible for this decision because the ban was made from the mayor's office. Mayor's appointed licensing commission. And so the ban was given. The control is from the executive, from the mayor's office, and that's who is responsible ultimately for taking it away. But it was great that there were also city councilors on that call, and some of them said, oh, I didn't know that there was this ban. And so, I don't hold city council responsible because they didn't make the decision to do the ban. It's not really their job to lift this. And I think there's worse systemic racism that needs city council, like to make affordable housing and stop discrimination in other areas. This should have been a very easy thing where I call someone, one of the mayor's managers of the code crisis. I say, I've been on calls with them. I should have said, this is an oversight. This is discrimination. If you're opening indoor restaurants, indoor hockey, you should let musicians work outside. It should have been simple then, but all right, maybe they are just inundated with too many arguments and too much emails from many different businesses, and their just knee-jerk reaction is, I hear you, even though they're not really listening, and saying, well, here's the reason that your activity, your business was banned. Just kind of maybe they're overwhelmed with the questions and arguments they're getting. So finally on that call, I was able to talk directly with the mayor. I said, this is the first time a decision maker has been able to hear from me directly. So thanks for doing it. And that's kind of when the clock was ticking. And now it is the mayor's responsibility to lift this racist ban. And he said on that call, he said, this is a narrow issue. I gave him permission to not have fixed it before because I was never able to talk to a decision maker. And he gave himself further permission, acknowledging, he says, it's a narrow issue, which I can kind of agree with in some sense, that there's just not a lot of music venues in this city in Somerville that have a patio that would be asking to add music. There are other music venues, but they don't have a patio, and so they just have the indoor space, and it's reasonable, and it's a state law. It's not within city's control to allow other Somerville venues to reopen inside. I don't know of a lot that are, there's certainly Sally O'Brien's, they have a great patio. Other than us and Sally O'Brien's, I don't know if there's a lot. So, okay, I can acknowledge it is a narrow issue, I suppose, in terms of how many people are affected. Obviously more important to do things like open schools safely, affecting a lot more people. All right, so this is the first time, a couple weeks ago, that Arts Town Hall, first time a decision maker heard from me. And I can acknowledge, all right, they didn't fix it before because it's a narrow issue. But from the mayor's own mouth, he said, it's a narrow issue, but I would like to address it. We should fix this. I'll have Tom call you. Tom's one of the city managers who I've been talking with over and over again for months. I said, great, finally, now the mayor needs to have all these areas where he looks tough on coronavirus. He needs to have all these areas, I think, where he keeps things blocked, banned, where they're actually dangerous. There's a lot of indoor things, I'm sure, in Somerville that are still banned, that are safer than the rest of the state. That might be reasonable. But to me, a couple weeks ago on that call, he said, all right, this is one where I don't have to have, he's told his staff, just make me look tough on coronavirus, make the city safe. And in a lot of ways, they made the city safe. In this way, they made the mayor maybe look tough on corona, but they're not saving lives by opening indoor businesses and banning outdoor music. So he acknowledged on that call that he wanted to fix what he called this narrow issue. And I thought, all right, great. He said he would have Tom call me. Tom didn't call me. The next day I emailed Tom. I've been in touch with Tom over several months, been on calls with him. He's the main person who's been telling me over and over again the reason that others made the decision, uncontrollable crowds. And so when the next day I didn't get any call, and then I emailed Tom and said, hey, Tom, the mayor on this town hall last night said we should address this issue. And I said, I appreciate you're really busy with all kinds of different businesses you have to open or keep closed. But let's fix this one now. The mayor last night on his call said we should fix this one. And I've got no call. City did not lift the ban on outdoor music. Maybe a week after that town hall, here's what the city did. they lifted the ban on recorded music outside. So to look tough on Corona, they say, you know what, no live music because uncontrollable crowds. Musicians cause criminal, uncontrollable gatherings. But music, all right, maybe that's a compromise we can make. And they lifted the ban maybe a week or two ago, if the town hall was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. City a week or two ago lifted the ban on radios, outdoor recorded music patios, but they still have a ban to this day. And now at this point, it's just too cold. We're going to be closing soon. It's too cold to do outdoor patio. So it is too late now for the city to lift the ban on outdoor music, banning musicians from working.
Wow, that's crazy. That is insane.
Yeah, it's just frustrating me. At first, the city has great managers who are really effective at managing city processes, licensing. I've always been so impressed with the way that this city is complicated and has a ton of rules, way more rules than probably any other city. I don't know if that's necessary or not, but given all those rules in different departments, the city's managers, I've been impressed with them in the past. They've just helped businesses, help musicians navigate those rules. They've had great processes for implementing things and moving restaurants outside. So it was frustrating that over a couple of years working with the city, it's been going so great. And then this summer, it's like those managers said, you know what, we're too busy and we aren't the decision maker. We just can't solve this problem, scapegoating and banning musicians. So that's when, with frustration, after like 2 months talking with them, I started posting publicly. And then finally, I was able to talk with the mayor, and finally the mayor acknowledged it and even said in front of the arts community, in front of his city council, who has some power against the mayor, very limited, in front of all those stakeholders who clearly he knew, and because they were saying that they supported what I said to lift the scapegoating ban on musicians, to stop that systemic racism. It was very popular in that town hall for him to address it as he says, it's a narrow issue, but I'd like to fix it. I'll have Tom call you. So that was the most frustrating thing for me, that finally I was able to get through. One of the very few people who get through to the mayor, to a decision maker in this time when they're all so busy. And he said, you know what, okay, I should fix it. And then nothing happened. That's why I hold the mayor responsible for this ban, for not fixing it, and for causing this systemic racism, which one day when he runs for governor, that's going to be part of his campaign. He's going to say, I was tough on Corona. I saved lives, saved some lives. You also open indoor hockey, indoor gyms where some people are inevitably going to get coronavirus.
Damn. Okay, so said right now we are only allowed to live stream from the stage inside to customers outside. For the rest of 2020, every day that we have a musician, we will pay them 50% of food sales and donate the other 50% to Southern Poverty Law Center. From one white person, this is the ending, this is good. From one white person to however many others want to listen. Racism exists where I live, where I work. It is disproportionately hurting Black people today, and I have not done enough. I'm tired of seeing well-meaning white people posting trendy messages of tolerance without taking action. What are we going to do now? So I really like this because this is really a theme of 2020. For example, even here in Boston, one thing that we were looking at was this strike. So there's a adult store. It's on the West Coast, but it's also here in the East Coast in Harvard Square in Brookline, called Good Vibrations. And they are a sex positive store. A lot of the people that work there are of color, they're trans, they are sex educators, and the store was not handling COVID very well. They were basically, regular America. They were putting profits over humans and safety and not putting them in a safe environment. So they went on strike and it actually had a good ending. They're back at work now. They won the negotiations with the store, but the kind of thing that reminded me of that last paragraph there was, the store is very progressive. It's got progressive product and they have like a Black Lives Matter sign outdoor. But when the strikers went on strike, again, minority ships, transgender, people of color, the store called the cops on them. So yeah, they were not practicing these, the most basic of slogans of progressive slogans, Black Lives Matter. They were not practicing it. So I wanted to see if you could elaborate a little bit more on that last paragraph that you wrote.
Yeah, that's shocking. That story is a perfect example. I haven't heard that story, and that's what it is. It's that it's not enough to say Black Lives Matter. It's not enough to see, like for instance, when the mayor said he saw that it's popular in that moment in that town hall, to say, oh, I'd like to stop this systemic racism. I'd like to lift this ban. And it's not enough to post in your yard, to post on your Facebook some message of tolerance. You could walk around the city and see all these messages of tolerance. That's overwhelming. And you might think, oh, well, I guess racism isn't here because there's so many messages of tolerance. But the question is, what are all these people doing? What's the action you take? Awareness is not, that's just the very first baby step. That doesn't do anything. Awareness is step one. You need to actually do something. And so what we're doing is we're hosting live music, local musicians, every genre of music, musicians who have for a long time worked at the Jungle, happen to be disproportionately Black. So we're hosting as a venue for musicians to showcase their art and their work. We're also paying musicians 50% of the food that we sell. So it's a restaurant. We try to pay the staff and some of the rent now with some of the alcohol sales. That's a state thing, that law that you can't have, if your name is not on the business name is not on the license, you can't be sharing, giving a percentage of alcohol sales. It's, I think, kind of to stop racketeering with the control of liquor licenses. So what we say is, all right, we separate out exclude the liquor sales. Then we say, all right, well, what can we do to support local musicians? And as a restaurant, we take all the food sales, so not proceeds, not 10%, not like after profit, it's just of the sale. So you buy a sandwich and fries for like $10, $11. We're gonna give half to the musician, that's pay for the musician, and the other half we donate to the Southern Poverty Law Center, so that we're doing this activism, trying to help people see how racism, not something that just happens in other cities, not something you see on the internet and post about. Racism is something that is happening in this city, in Somerville. It's happening at the Jungle. Musicians who have long been disproportionately Black and work at the Jungle are not allowed to work in a way that is much more meaningful in front of fans and customers outside. They have to have the art compressed and somewhat diminished and somewhat ruined by when it streams live to Facebook, so going off phone, as opposed to doing it live in front of fans. So yeah, racism is something that happens not just on the internet and other places, it happens right here. So we acknowledge it, we try to show and improve awareness, but we're also taking action, something to fix it, which is paying a fair share, 50% of all food sales to musicians, every musician who performs at the Jungle. This is throughout 2020, the whole rest of the time that will be open in 2020. We've started this at least a month ago. And the other 50% we are donating to Southern Poverty Law Center, because what they do is teach children tolerance so that they don't grow up to say things when it's popular, say, oh, I'm gonna crack down on these super predators. I'm gonna crack down on super spreaders, and when it's not a way to actually save people from crime or save people from the virus, it's just a way to look tough on crime, look tough on corona. So yeah, they teach children tolerance, and they actively take steps to stop and fight racism in the courts, systemic racism, and identifying, tracking, stopping hate groups. And that's a problem throughout the United States, and all this, the systemic racism is a big problem right here in Somerville.
Okay, I got 3 more questions for you. You're amazing. Okay, so first 2 are pretty easy. So the first question would be, where can people find you, like in terms of social media, or even if they're local, where would they be able to find you? The second question is there something that I didn't cover that you might want to talk about? And then I'll save the third for after those 2.
Find us. We are in Union Square, right behind the independent restaurant. It's the Jungle Community Music Club. The other thing actually I didn't get to was, Community Music Club. Focus on that it's community small club, but it's a community music club in the concrete jungle, which is really a humble place. It used to be an old police car garage. It was abandoned in the 80s, at least not used by the police, not used for anything but like storage from other restaurants in the neighborhood. Just empty concrete box. And then we took over, started leasing it in 2018. From an empty concrete box, it used to be empty garage, put a stage at one end and a bar at the other end, bar and kitchen at the other end. And that's what became a very, very simple, humble community music club in the concrete jungle, because really Union Square is a lot of great small businesses there to support, but not a lot of beautiful parks. It's just kind of a little bit of a concrete jungle where you've got bridges, roads, lots of construction, kind of industrial space. For a long time, it was just industrial factories. Now there's a lot of nice small local businesses, owner operated, like the jungle, but it's in a concrete box, like a lot of what you'll see in the area. So Community Music Club in the concrete jungle, that's where we are, Union Square, behind the independent restaurant. Follow us everywhere at the Jungle CMC, at the Jungle Community Music Club, the Jungle CMC on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, and then the last question is, let's kind of swap roles here. So let's pretend you're the mayor and Sam Epstein is coming at you and presenting the exact scenario that we've been going over here on the podcast. So how do you, if you're the mayor, how do you stay tough on COVID? Okay, you're looking to get votes because maybe you're trying to progress your career for governor or whatever is higher position. And so how do you do all these things and satisfy Sam Epstein? What is the right?
I can totally support that this city and this mayor said, this is a big city, it's more dense, we're going to wait on phase 3, step 1. Great, they did wait. Then when it's time to go with phase 3, step 1, you have to lift the ban on outside music. So if you're like, I am not the mayor, I didn't spend all the time. I hope that he was talking with medical experts. Once you talk with them and you've decided that somehow it's safe enough, I don't know when it is, I don't know if it is safe enough to have indoor hockey in gyms, but assuming he talked with those experts, they said it's safe enough to have inside hockey in gym. Whenever the experts say that's safe enough to do, then of course you have to, hopefully you had people who were fighting racism and have lifted, working for you and have already done the right thing of long ago, lifting ban on outdoor music. But at least by the time that you're going to open indoor gyms and hockey, at least by the time someone had to like this annoying music club manager has gone around your city managers and ambushed you on what was supposed to be a nice feel-good call to support music. By that time, hopefully you continue to look good supporting music by, like he did, say, yes, I'm going to fix it. And then you have to stop, write it down, and then fix it. The next day, actually have that ban lifted. But he said the thing that looked popular on that call, and then no action was taken, no lifting of that ban.
You are awesome. That's all I got.